Today we're here to talk about building a fully functional revenue integrity team. I think it's going to be important to remember the words fully functional. We're going to talk about building a revenue integrity team, not in the traditional sense of how many folks should you have, what should their backgrounds and education be. You're going to see we're going to dive into a little bit different direction, but we're here to talk about that. Just as an FYI, today's session is sponsored by MDaudit. We're going to talk about MDaudit a little bit more in a moment. Before we kind of get into the session itself, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Dana Finnegan. I'm the Director of Market Strategy at MDaudit. Little bit of housekeeping items. You'll definitely be getting a copy of this recording. You'll absolutely be getting a copy of the deck as well. I do want you to feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. We may or may not get to that at the end, depending on how we're doing on time. But if we don't, we'll certainly make sure we contact you with the answer you're looking for. Also be aware that there's going to be a survey at the end, really quick, just asking you what topics you may want to see in the future, as well as some feedback as well. And finally, just want to also say that, one of the intentions of our webinar, it's not to sell you technology. It's really to send you home. My goal is with at least one nugget or more that you're going to be able to incorporate into your revenue integrity programs. That's what we want to do, is arm you with the intelligence we have within the MDaudit community, give it to you so you can have some positive outcomes with your revenue integrity endeavors. We're going to talk a little bit about MDaudit. Again, they're sponsoring this webinar. Little bit about MDaudit before we jump into the main section is MDaudit is a revenue integrity platform, a billing compliance and revenue integrity platform that really optimizes AI, sophisticated analytics and workflows to ensure folks, our community, are really maximizing revenues and reimbursements, and also ensuring that they're billing compliantly to really reap as much reimbursement as you can in such a complex payer environment. These are just some numbers are about us. What we want you to take away is we've been around for 30 years. We work with hundreds of organizations across the country, all the way from very large academic medical centers down to smaller community hospitals and everything in between. We have a ton of folks being audited on our platform, providers, coders, lots of technology that, again, can help you really bolster bottom lines and have healthy outcomes. And we're going to be referring to a lot of data within the MDaudit community. So we just wanted to give you a quick introduction to who we are and what we do. I think we're going to start again with why we're here, building a fully functional revenue integrity team. Now, I think we're all, as I said, pretty aware of, we want smart people on our teams. We want hardworking people on our teams. Not always easy to find them in today's environment. But let's get past kind of the basics. You all know who you want on your teams, the backgrounds and education they need and expertise. But what we want to talk about is MDaudit, as I said, works with hundreds of revenue integrity departments across the country. And one of the things that we sometimes take for granted is what you're seeing on this slide, that a truly fully functioning revenue integrity process and program is one where every single one of these folks that you see are around a table at the same time. So you need revenue cycle there. You need billing compliance there. You need your coding department there, your clinical department, utilization management. All of those folks need to be sitting around the same table. Now, that may seem like a basic concept, but when we go out and talk to a lot of folks, a lot of these functions are not at the table, are not included. And maybe sometimes there's still some silos that exist. Nicely, this is starting to break down. Years ago, it was very siloed. There are still some of those silos, but as we kind of move forward every year, people are understanding the importance that every one of these people sit at that table. The bigger piece of if you can get everybody to sit at that table is what's in between. You can see billing and payments data. What we have seen at MDaudit is everybody really, in order to maximize outcomes, need to be working from the same billing and payments data. What I mean is partnering with a vendor or someone that can take your claims data, your remittance data, and make it consumable for all of those people sitting at the table. Because what happens, unfortunately, is if you're successful enough to get everybody at the table, it's very, very common for people from these departments to be working with different data out of different disparate systems. Nothing's connected. No one's working from the same data. So when you get to the table, 95% of that meeting is spent not arguing, but trying to reconcile the data that each one of those stakeholders is bringing. So not only do you got to think about it, do I have everybody at this table? Is everybody represented along that revenue integrity, revenue cycle continuum? So their voices can be heard and their insights can be brought up to the other departments. But are you working from the same data? Really quickly, again, we're not here to sell you our software, but MDaudit can take all of those sources of data, 837Is, 837Ps, 835s, bring it together and expose it to all of you at the same time. So you're truly working from the same data. And when you are working from the same data and you have all those people at the table at the same time, your outcomes are much better. Literally, at the end of the day, you're able to fight a better fight against shrinking reimbursements, external payer audits, RAC letters, OIG, and so on. The last thing I would mention about working from the same data is you don't have to spend time, reconciling things. It's all there for you. But when you're working from the same data, when I find something in billing compliance that is something that coding needs to see or revenue cycle needs to see, I can easily disseminate that information to that other stakeholder and vice versa. The reconciliation is already done and you can all be on the same page. You wouldn't believe how powerful it is and how outcomes are maximized when everybody is at the table and using the same data. We don't see that very often, and that's what we want to help folks do. So that's the first kind of piece. Again, this is non-traditional. This is more tips and tricks of what we see to make a revenue integrity program really, really successful. The next part of this is, okay, once you get folks to the table, what are some of the intangibles that need to be done? So we thought about reimagining revenue integrity. What does that mean? There's so many different definitions out there. Well, the first one is, we talked about it. Once you get people at the table, break down the silos. Very straightforward, not so easy to do. Need to check egos at the door and really, keep an open mind to what everybody's bringing to the table. Everybody has important information. Number two, although it seems really simple, I was recently at a NARI convention, not too long ago. And one of the things that most of those folks that were recognizing better outcomes for their revenue integrity program were those that actually at least once a quarter were literally sitting down, not virtually, but together in the same room and kind of sharing those insights from the data that they saw. So it's establishing a regular cadence for those meetings. And if you can, and it's possible, actually getting it in that same room with those stakeholders that we talked about on the previous slide. We all hear a lot, oh, we'll get to that next quarter. We'll get to that next quarter. Got to get in that same room in the same place. We talked about number three, leveraging data. So you can all come in and kind of tell a story about where you're struggling, where you're not struggling, and seeing some really positive things. But again, make sure, if you can, that you're partnering with a vendor and a technology that can help you leverage that data. And we're going to talk more about what that means momentarily. Success metrics. This is where I think we have our traditional success metrics in revenue integrity, like, what should our days in AR be? What are our first pass pay rates? What are our denial rates? Everybody's kind of got those nailed. But we kind of forget about some of the other things that are important success metrics. And I'll talk about a few from the MDaudit community that we really feel are important that don't always make your KPIs. Some of them are, how long should a coder have when you send them to do a review and rebuttal? We ask that question a lot, and it's kind of, I don't know, and there's a lot of stickiness, squishiness to that. Really important thing. Do your coders have a rebuttal process, and how long does it take for them to get back to you? And if they're not getting back to you, Do you have any type of reporting that can let you know that they're not getting back to you? I think another big one that really throws folks for a loop is how long and what charges should you hold up when you're doing prospective or pre-bill reviews? We really find at the MD audit community that 20% of your charges are really causing 80 to 90% of your denial pain and those things that are bouncing out for med necessity and so on. Really kind of, a lot of them are centering around CCs, MCCs, HCCs, specialty procedures. Real big point of contention with the payers is long-term care services, high-cost drugs, complex diagnoses. So do you have not only how long you want to hold up charges, but what you would actually hold up on a pre-bill basis? Not only did you think about it, prospective audits, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but also stuff that charges you may want to run through a pre-bill predictive denial engine. There's a lot of technology out there that'll say, hey, I see your charge. It's going to deny for this reason, suggestions on how to fix it based on AI's ability to query those payer policies. So those are a couple of things you want to think about. A third one is, do you have any type of technology or KPIs around when payer policy changes? Do you have a central point of contact or repository or department that is able to understand when those changes take place, what those changes are, and most importantly, disseminate it out to the stakeholders that were sitting around that table in slide number 1? Do you have here's a big one that really falls by the wayside. We know you do a lot of education with your providers and coders and in your internal and revenue integrity teams, but do you have a streamlined process for CAPs, corrective action plans? When a provider needs more than just education or a coder needs more than just education, do you have a streamlined way to operationalize those CAPs and track them with outcomes? Do you have the ability to drill down immediately to root cause of denial? Meaning, if you're getting a lot of those denials that say, information needed, documentation needed, not meeting medical necessity, do you really know why the payer's saying that? There is technology that can help you understand that root cause based on payer policy. And I think the final one I would say when defining a metric is for those that are using technology or thinking about using technology, do you have the right vendor? Any vendor that a revenue integrity program works with should really straddle all revenue integrity functions: coding, reimbursement, denials, contract management. You don't want to have 5 different vendors for 5 different revenue integrity functions. That is what's creating people coming to that meeting with disparate data that's not reconciling. You want to find a vendor that can straddle that entire continuum and help everybody get what they need from that data. And I think the last one, it seems fluffy, but it's not. But keeping an open mind, we do hear sometimes that, you go to these meetings, you get all revved up, everybody's working together, but then as soon as you get back to the real world and all of your challenges, it kind of falls a little flat. So you want to keep an open mind, listen to folks' ideas, and do your best to operationalize those and have takeaways and metrics around if these meetings are being fruitful. The next place I want to go is from the technology standpoint. So part of having a fully functional revenue integrity team is understanding that those folks on the team can't do everything manually. So really quickly, we've got 3 things that you should be looking for in a vendor. It's really, can they give you real-time data access? Meaning, can it look at the claims that are going out? Can it look at the denials that are coming back, make them consumable for you? And then not only make it consumable, but run analytics and AI over it and tell you that these are your risks. With all of this unwieldy data coming in, can it tell you who are your overcoding physicians? Who are your undercoding physicians? What are your top denials? What departments are incurring those top denials and why? Again, helping you get to that root cause. And most importantly, you want to have kind of a centralized repository from your vendor for number 3, where it will literally allow you to go into a screen and see your alerts, the things that you need to worry about from number 1 to number 10. It seems too good to be true, but it is out there. Technology can help you really what we do is call CRM for RCM, continuous risk monitoring for revenue cycle management and revenue integrity. You need a vendor as part of your team, as part of your revenue integrity team. It acts as another FTE. It's not doing the job for you. Humans are always involved in the loop, but it's going to allow you to go and say, at the end of the day, these are my top 3 risks that I need to deal with right now. And again, outcomes will always be maximizing revenue, minimizing any billing compliance risk. The last thing I'm going to say about tech as part of your revenue integrity team is you see all of these things around the circle: underpayments, overpayments, denials analysis, external audits. A vendor should not only offer analytics, but AI as well, responsible AI, and AI where humans are always involved in the loop with governance and QAing that AI. I would say that, if you're not employing AI yet or you're a little hesitant to, just know that payers are heavily investing in AI to really kind of double down on your denials and the scrutiny they have of you. But I'm going to give kind of a quick example. I won't go through all of these because we want to get into some cool data that we have to give you some knowledge on how to bolster your revenue integrity team. But external audits, payer audits from, RAC and OIG and TPE and SMRC and UPIC, all of those, that alphabet soup of folks that are coming and knocking on your door and requesting medical records because they may want to do clawbacks. The one single thing that I've heard from revenue integrity leaders is they get these ADRs or these demand letters from the payers, and they kind of sit on a desk for a few days to a week. At that point, you're really forfeiting your ability to retain as much revenue as you can. And in a lot of times, we're just giving back money because we don't have the technology to help us fight that good fight. AI can be leveraged. MDaudit has AI that can actually receive that letter for you, post it for you in our system, and throw at you the accounts that are being scrutinized. Not only can it do that, it can allow you to leverage what we call ESMD, which is electronic submission of medical documentation, to send all of those records back that the payer is requesting far before any limits are exceeded. And it also allows workflows that allow you to go in and see, is this an appropriate clawback? Did we bill compliantly? And again, if you did, send all of that information immediately back to that requester, that payer, so you can really keep those monies that have been very hard earned. That's one example. Let's talk about underpayments and overpayments. Any good technology can look at your billing. Let's take your provider's billing. Let's even do something as simple as E&Ms and procedures. It can look at your providers by specialty and compare them to what CMS considers normal billing patterns. We even have within the MDaudit community the ability to look at your providers by specialty, compare them to others within the MDaudit community of the same specialty, and then see which one of your providers are billing outside of normative ranges, aka who are those that are habitually undercoding and overcoding, and give you their risk profile so you can audit them immediately. So again, technology and AI, it's not there to take your job. It's not to dumb things down. We know that revenue integrity departments are really lean and thin and need the help. So I think, a lot of what we're showing is in intangibles, but we know you've got the basics down. But again, a lot of technology can be employed, and a lot of folks need to be at the same time at the table at the same time using that same data. If you've got that, you're really going to have a very strong revenue integrity function. We're not going to go into denials prediction at this point, but I mentioned it a little bit earlier. There's a lot of technology out there that can help you predict denials before they happen based on technology understanding your very specific payer mix and how they adjudicate claims. All right, last thing I want to mention before we get into some really good insights is I think everybody on this call, and this is how MDaudit defines revenue integrity, is these 3 pillars: Everybody on this call is trying their best to optimize reimbursement and stay compliant with their billing. Where a lot of departments fall short is the third circle, being operationally efficient. Again, very simple, but that's where you can add technology and AI and analytics to help you do the top two, but also stay operationally efficient. Think about it. If you came in as an auditor or as an analyst for denials and you were able to come in and say, of the entirety of your population, these are the top 25 providers or high-risk DRGs or HCCs that are bouncing out for med necessity or information needed or not meeting medical necessity, whatever it may be, you would be a lot more operationally efficient. So the last piece I want to get in here, and I'm actually going a little, I'm not doing so good on time, but we're going to go through this. So if it's fast, don't worry, you'll be getting this PowerPoint. But what we talked about so far was build a revenue integrity program with everybody around the table, all the appropriate stakeholders, share from the same data, and employ technology to help you stay operationally efficient. All of those things, although they seem simple, if you bring them together, you're going to see a massive increase in your positive outcomes. Now, the one thing I want to go back to is knowledge. So what I'm speaking to now is the 2024 MDaudit benchmarking report. This is a report that we amalgamated and aggregated all of the data from our 150 plus clients across the country and really said, in the revenue integrity function, what are people doing? And what's most relevant year over year. So this is going to talk about our benchmarking report from 2023 to 2024. FYI, we're going to send this deck out to you and you're going to have full access to this benchmarking report. And I guarantee if you download it and take a look at it, you're going to find at least 5 to 10 things you're going to go in and investigate in your revenue integrity program. So definitely grab it. Let's go through some of them, and I'm going to race through these slides so you can see the wealth of information we have. So the first one is from 2023 to 2024, we saw billing compliance auditors have a 35% increase in the number of audits they were doing. And okay, why was that? Well, they implemented technology, the same technology that allowed those auditors to go in and say, I work in orthopedics, I work in primary care. Show me my providers that are habitually overcoding and undercoding compared to CMS, compared to the MDaudit community. And it puts them right in front of there so they can audit them immediately. Not only will it allow them to audit them or see who those providers are, but back into an audit. You don't have to rely on IT or spreadsheets. The data is right there for you. So if you have the right technology, you can see a massive increase in the number of audits you do. And if you have more audits and you're not pulling your hair out trying to do sample sizes and spreadsheets, you're going to have a heck of a lot more time to go back to those corrective action plans and education I talked about to mitigate bad patterns going forward. Really quick one here. We won't go into it too much to keep time. There's been a 10% increase in retrospective audits. Not a big deal, but look at the right-hand side. 275% increase in the number of prospective audits that are being done within our community. If you're a revenue integrity department, you need to start having a similar blend. You want to get away from so much retrospective and start doing more prospective pre-bill audits. There is technology out there that can ensure you're not holding things up too long while you scrutinize them on a pre-bill basis. Got to move to more prospective audits of both your providers, your coders, and those scenarios that are be highly scrutinized by your payers. Third one really quickly is huge increase in the HCC audits that are being done, specifically for Medicare Advantage plans. You can see bolded up there in the first bullet, there's been about $50 billion in overpayments identified by the federal government for HCCs. If you're sending out those HCCs you're sending out, you want an ability to do quick audits. Pull the HCCs that I'm billing out over the last 2 months, 3 months. Let me go in and do a coding quality audit. If not, you're going to be getting a ton of denials and payer audits, external payer audits. So start working on those HCC audits as well. I want to go into a little bit about denials. Again, we're going to send this out to you, but we want to quickly say that from 2023 to 2024, we saw a massive increase in the average denied amount per claim. You can see that it went up 4.2%, 4.8%, and 6.9% professional, outpatient, inpatient, respectively. The scarier piece here is that 30% of that on the inpatient side was from hospital inpatient for Medicare Part A. The other 30% on the pro fee side was from your commercial insurances. Really what we saw is Medicare is really zeroing on inpatient settings with complexity of care associated, HCCs, high-risk DRGs, and so on. Whereas on the pro fee side, it was largely driven by office and emergency department visits. So you'll be getting this, but see if you're having similar spikes with that inpatient side of things for Medicare Part A and your commercial insurances on the pro fee side. This is one that we really want you to take a look at is payers denying more dollars for information needed in medical necessity. Really quickly on the hospital inpatient side, we saw a 148% increase in inpatient, and a lot of that was driven by your commercial insurances. Your commercials are doubling down. Even if you're coding appropriately into the highest level of accuracy and integrity, they're looking for very specific documentation to support medical necessity and certain documentation that's needed. The MDaudit report shows you those DRGs and those for specialty procedures and high-cost drugs where they're looking for that information needed and what is needed to support the medical necessity by payer. Come to us, we can help you understand this more. The other thing I would mention here really quickly is, aside from denials, we've seen a huge spike in payer audits, 5 times year over year. Overall payer audit dollars in 2023 were 2.6 million that was at risk of clawback. In 2024, that went to 11.2 million. And again, we talked about this. No matter how good you are with denials, no matter how good you are with billing compliantly, you will get these payer audit letters. Do you have the revenue integrity functions in order to process them immediately, the technology to immediately communicate with that payer so you're fighting that good fight? If not, you're being put behind the 8 ball and you're going to lose a lot of hard-earned revenue. In the last 12 months, our customers in the MDaudit community retained more than $100 million in at-risk revenue because they had the technology at their fingertips to immediately fight the fight when they got those ADR letters. I think the last thing I want to mention before we break and before we're done is coding related denials. The revenue integrity world is really excited about autonomous coding. A lot of you are even outsourcing a lot of your coding related functions. But as you can see, the average denied amount for coding specific related denials went up 126%. And on the inpatient side, 219% year over year. What does that mean? It means if you're using autonomous coding technology or you're outsourcing those coding audits, you've got to have some governance and QA around it. Autonomous coding is not fully baked. Last thing I'll show, and you can grab this from our MDaudit report as well, is for the professional side of things, the outpatient side of things, and inpatient side of things. The number one common thread is of denial is payer deems the information submitted does not support this level of service. It means that they are going to double down on med necessity and tell you it doesn't meet what they expected for that level of service. One other tidbit, make sure your coders, even if it's your lead coders or some of your coders, are cross-trained and not only doing their coding responsibilities, but understanding payer policy. If they can understand the payers that are bouncing this out, they can code, obviously as long as it's in the documentation, code more appropriately for those specific payers so those level of service denials will be greatly mitigated. So folks, some closing thoughts. I'm going to let you read those because we're almost at time. Joy is going to throw up a survey that you can take before you leave. But as you're reading those closing thoughts, the last thing I would say is, we hope you got something out of this. I believe you will between this deck and if you come and get our benchmarking report. But what I'd consider is don't just think of as your revenue integrity team as the people. Think of it as a partnership between people and technology. And with if you have that, if you have both of those hand in hand, you're going to see your outcomes become a much better in terms of healthy bottom lines. So thank you very much for joining, folks. I know this was only a half an hour, but take that survey. Let us know what else you want to hear about, and thank you very much for attending.